The reality is there are segments of the far left which have been consumed by this anti-Zionist ideology. Now, we've talked on your show before, and I'm pretty out there saying anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism because it is. I also think the sky is blue. I also think that the world is not flat. The rabid anti-Zionist is just an anti-Semite by any other name. By the way, even if they come from our Jewish community, we need to recognize that as well.
All right, well, that was a choice. Pro-Israel zealots like ADL CEO Johnathan Greenblatt are having to reckon with the stone cold fact that a lot of Jewish people, including a lot of younger Jewish Americans, don't subscribe to Zionist ideology. And so Greenblatt has decided to attack them as anti-Semites.
I want to be super clear. Anti-Defamation League, I'm laughing at you.
How could you not?
Yeah, you should be registered as foreign agents because you obviously don't care about Jewish Americans. You just said it. You just said you're going to attack fellow Jews who aren't sufficiently loyal to Israel.
A foreign country.
A foreign country. You have to register as a foreign agent. You're not battling hate, you are a hate group. And now you're turning your hate towards fellow Jewish Americans. So we've got more on this, including Johnathan Greenblatt also accidentally admitting whose side he's on. So we'll get to that in a minute.
So Greenblatt sat down for an interview on the In These Times podcast, which is hosted by Rabbi Ami Hirsch. And here's his description of the criticisms of Zionism. Take a look.
Anti-Zionism is simply the latest way that anti-Jewish hate is normalized and legitimized with a pseudo-scientific or pseudo-political veneer. But if you look at the tropes and if you listen to the words and you see them for who they are, like the rabid anti-Zionist is just an anti-Semite by any other name. Anti-Zionism is not, again, dignity and equality for all people. Anti-Zionism is denial of rights for Jewish people. It's what it is.
I just want people to stop getting slaughtered, and I want the land theft to stop by Israel. That's all I want. It's that simple. I want Palestinian human beings to be treated as human beings and not slaughtered.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
So I laugh because George Orwell screaming from the grave, I told you, I told you. Jews are not Jews, Jews hate Jews. And slaughtering people is not immoral, it's moral. If you criticize a genocide, then you hate Jewish people because Jews are for genocide, but that's a trope, so you hate Jewish people more. What on God's green earth are you talking about?
That is a disgusting thing to say. Like, I just said this in the first hour of the show today. Like, do they not understand what they're doing by lumping in all Jewish people with what Israel is doing? By saying that it's anti-Semitic to be critical of the mass slaughter campaign that the Israeli government and the IDF is currently engaged in. That means like you're defaming and smearing the entire Jewish population. It's disgusting.
So again, I'll use Armenian genocide as an analogy here. If there were groups here, the ATL, the anti-Turkish League, or whatever, the pro-Turkish League, whatever, right? And they're here and they're like, okay, if you criticize the Ottoman Empire for the Armenian genocide, that means you're an anti-Turkist, and all Turkish people did it, but they didn't happen. So you hate Turkish people if you say that. Now, people, one, would say you're being absurd. And two, I would say as a Turkish American, what are you bringing me into this for? I didn't do it, that was 100 years ago. It wasn't even the Turkish Republic, it was the Ottoman Empire. I got nothing to do with it. And it definitely was a genocide. But here, they're like, all right, it definitely is a genocide, so we can't argue on that. So what we have to do is go to our one-trick pony, where we smear anyone who is being accurate about it. But when you do that, as Anna's pointing out, for a lot of them, they're accidentally smearing fellow Jews.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But for guys like Johnathan Greenblatt who are in leadership, it's not accidental. He's a terrible person. He works for Israel. He's accidentally said it on tape before. We're gonna show it to you in a sec, okay? And he's purposely saying, let's screw over Jewish Americans. One, the ones that are good and decent and moral people who are against the genocide, let's smear them as anti-Semitic, even though they're Jewish. I mean, do you really think that's gonna work, Johnathan? Do you know how stupid you sound? You sound like the dumbest person in the country. And so, how long do you think it's gonna be before other Jewish Americans go, I've had enough of your crap, right? You pretending to speak for me when you're helping this government do these terrible things, and then you want me to pay a price for it, and you want people to attack me for it? I didn't ask them to do that, I was against it, right? And so he's purposely putting Jews in danger, not just the Jews against the genocide, but all Jews, because he's saying, now remember, this is not just the actions of a government, and governments do evil things all the time, whether they're Jewish, Muslim, Christian, etc. No, it's not that. It's all Jews. So if you don't like what Israel's doing, you should hate all Jews.
Right,
what the hell? That you're the exact opposite of what the ADL is supposed to be doing.
I mean, he is signaling that it is an inherent trait of all Jewish people to be in favor of what Israel is carrying out, and that's just not true. In fact, he himself admits that many young Jewish Americans do not agree with him. And he cites the recent mayoral election in New York City to make the case. Let's take a look.
I think we have a real challenge on our hands, because the truth is that, like what happened in our mayoral race here in New York City, like Mayor-elect Mamdani won apparently with 30% of the Jewish vote. And so there are a number of people who heard what he said and still believed in him. Mamdani's been very clear. And he kind of, like I said, casually talks about being an anti-Zionist. That is an anti-Semitic position. And 30% of New York Jews apparently voted for Mayor-elect Mamdani with God's standard point of view. And he is our mayor. And like that or not, we have to deal with that.
What do you make of what he said there, Jay?
Yeah, he's like 30% of Jews voted for Mamdani because they're not bigots against Muslims like we are. We just told you he's a Muslim, so that's it. You should despise him forever and ever. But 30% of Jews in New York were awesome people, and they didn't vote based on our demagoguery. They voted on what was best for New York and for themselves. So we're now attacking those no good Jews in New York. Do you think that's what the ADL is supposed to do? Attack Jews in New York? Because they voted the wrong way? Why did they vote the wrong way? Did Mamdani say anything about Jewish people? Not at all, and you know it. And so that's why 30% of Jews didn't mind voting for him, because he never said anything anti-Semitic. But he did criticize the government of Israel, which, by the way, 98% of the planet has. Right? But of course, if you ask the Johnathan Greenblatt, everyone, literally everyone in the world's an anti-Semite and is a Jew hater, and they should all have their lives ruined, etc. Right? He's a big, stupid bully who tries to destroy people's lives here on behalf of Israel. And now he's furious at fellow Jews. He's like, why won't you be as hateful as I am? Why don't you hate the Muslims? Why don't you help me smear them? Why don't you protect the genocide? Why don't you protect Israel above America? Because they're not Israeli. Get it through your thick head. I know that you love Israel more than everything else on the planet combined, and you love to work for them and not for us. But so he'll go, oh, do a loyalty troop. No, brother, I'm not saying all Jews do that. In fact, I'm saying Jews are not doing that.
Right.
You are. You are.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm criticizing you doesn't mean I'm criticizing all Jews. Stop hiding behind human shields. Okay, and I promised you the video, so let's pull up the video that Alyssa got. So this is his famous Freudian slip if you haven't seen it before. Let's watch.
The national symbol, let's say, of Hezbollah is a rifle. That's what's on their flag. The national symbol of Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, is a sword. That's what's on their flag. The national symbol of Israel is the shield. It's the Star of David. The symbol of our people is not a weapon of war. It's an instrument of defense. The thing that most embodies our entire ethos is not harming others. It's again, creating a better world. This is fundamental to our tradition for thousands of years. And so the idea that our national anthem would be the Hatikva, would be the hope, I should say it's the Israel's national anthem. But I think it speaks to the Jewish longing that whether you're a Jew, I don't know, in New York City or in Nairobi, Kenya, like we all have this shared sense of hope.
Oops. Our national anthem, our flag, our this, our that, in reference to everything about Israel, not America. Johnathan, I know that you and Bill Maher and so many others love Tel Aviv. One flight ticket, you could be in your homeland, your promised land, and then you could be like part of the people voting for genocide. Wouldn't that be great, Johnathan? So you're a sick person, you're a bigot. Your group is pretending to fight bigotry, but is actually promoting bigotry. Now it's promoting bigotry against fellow Jews, thereby invalidating its charter completely. You have made obvious and clear on both occasions that you and your group work for Israel. That's why you should register as a foreign agent.
I gotta give you some of these stats because Kate Patino, our producer, did an amazing job researching this, and I learned a lot, and I want you to know about these numbers as well, because look, the data on whether Jews identify as Zionists is sparse, but as we know, different people have different definitions of Zionism, so let's just kind of clear that up a little bit, because there are those who just see Zionism as Israel having a right to exist, right? But it has kind of changed it to mean something else. Others see it as like a modern day expansionary ethno-nationalist movement and project. So when we're, at least for me, and I know for you too, when we're critical of Zionism, that's what we're referring to, the latter meaning of the word. So there was one study that was done by a pro-Israel group called Boundless Israel, which found that only 31% of Jews ages 18 to 40 identify as Zionist, which is really interesting. But then the survey conductor—
all 31%, by the way, live in either Washington and are politicians or work for a nonprofit, or live in New York and are part of media. Because it make the Zionist Jewish Americans make it seem like, nope, every Jewish American is 100% Zionist. Turns out it's only 31% of them. They're just lying on behalf of everyone else.
Okay, but then the survey conductors provided respondents with their definition of Zionism, a movement that supports the Jewish people having a state in their ancestral homeland, Israel, and the number went up to 53% identifying as Zionist.
Yeah, that is nowhere near what you see on television. On television, they claim that's it. If you criticize Israel at all, you're offending all Jews, because all Jews love Israel, all Jews are Zionists, all Jews are this or all Jews are that. And they're like, and remember, don't make generalizations about Jews. I didn't, you did.
Yeah.
Right?
So there's a lot of really interesting data. I'll go to one more graphic here. So when it comes to US support for Israel, younger Jewish Americans have definitely broken from older individuals or their older counterparts. Let's take a quick look at this. So 54% of Jewish Americans ages 65 and older say that the US should play a major diplomatic role in resolving the war. That's compared with 33% of those ages 18 to 34. Older Jews are also more likely to favor the US providing military aid to Israel to help in its war against Hamas. 82% of those 50 and older versus 61% of those 18 to 34.
So last two things here. So there's no equivalent word of Zionist from my background, and I use my background just so like I'm not biased about it, right? So in this case, if are there Turkish nationalists who believe that Turkey should be larger than it is today? Of course, there is in almost every country, right? So do those nationalists want to occupy and take northern Syria? They probably do. I don't know their inner workings, right? Now, if I said, if you criticize Turkish nationalists trying to take northern Syria, that means you hate all Turks. That would be maniacal, right? I don't believe that Turkey should take northern Syria. That is a political position. It is not about my religion, it's not about my ethnicity, it's not about my race, it's a political position. Zionism is by definition a political position, and it's like saying, well, if you're not Republican, then you must be an anti-Semite. That doesn't make any sense at all, okay? So, all right, now finally, so of course, for a lot of these guys, Nick Fuentes is the worst of the worst, and he does say things that certainly a lot of people think are anti-Semitic, and for me, cross a line. Okay, and so to me, a lot of the things that he says is not that close, especially when he talks about a white ethno-state or a Christian ethno-state, and people go, "That is, see, we told you." Rabid, racist, totally unacceptable. No one should ever talk to him because he's for an ethno-state based on a religion, like a Christian. Oh, wait a minute. Zionism is an ethno-state based on a religion, saying that we should form a nation where we center only Jewish people. We allow Muslims to exist, but they have to be a minority. an oppressed minority. They can never be the majority. They can never have control. Ethno-states are awesome when Israel does it, but if anyone else dares suggest an ethno-state, well, then you're the most racist, evil person on earth. Oops.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.